Have you ever felt like something or someone is working against you? Like invisible forces are trying to block your progress, stir up confusion, or drain your energy. You're not imagining it. The spiritual battle is real, but here's the good news. God fights for you. And Psalm 64 is one of the most powerful prayers for divine protection, justice, and breakthrough. Many people struggle with negativity, envy, or unexpected setbacks, wondering why things seem to go wrong just when they're about to move forward. But what if the problem isn't just physical? What if there are unseen forces trying to stop what God has planned for you? That's where Psalm 64 becomes your shield, your spiritual armor against hidden attacks, manipulation, and oppression. In this powerful teaching, you'll discover how this Bible passage can guard your life, remove blockages, and open doors that were once shut. You'll learn how to pray with authority, call upon divine justice, and stand firm against any opposition. But more importantly, you'll realize that no enemy, seen or unseen, can prevail when God is on your side. Ready to step into divine protection? Let's begin. Prayer isn't just words. It's a force, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. Psalm 64 carries this power, acting as a shield for those seeking divine justice. Imagine facing adversity, feeling surrounded by negativity, and then discovering a prayer that shifts the atmosphere. This isn't just about reciting words. It's about unlocking a connection with God that transforms fear into faith. And when one prays with conviction, the heavens respond. Think about how battles are won, not always with strength, but with strategy. Psalm 64 is that strategy. It's a cry for justice, for protection against hidden threats, spoken by those who refuse to be defeated. Just like a soldier trusts his armor, the believer trusts in the power of prayer. But here's the key. Saying the words alone isn't enough. One must pray with faith, with expectation, knowing that the Bible reveals God's promises to those who trust in Him. Ever noticed how some people walk through storms without breaking? They're not stronger, they're covered. That's what this prayer does. It builds a fortress around the soul, shielding against whispers of doubt, unseen dangers, and spiritual attacks. It's not about escaping challenges, but standing firm in the midst of them, knowing that God fights for His own. And here's where things get even deeper. Evil doesn't always come with a warning sign. Sometimes, it lurks in envy, in hidden traps, in words spoken behind closed doors. That's why Psalm 64 is more than just a prayer. It's a spiritual shield. It guards against unseen dangers, those silent attacks that drain energy and disrupt peace. Just like a soldier wouldn't walk into battle unprotected, a believer shouldn't go through life without divine protection. And the best part? This shield is always available, ready to cover those who call upon God with faith. Ever walked into a room and felt an unexplainable heaviness? That's not just in your head. Negative forces move in silence, influencing thoughts, relationships, even opportunities. But here's the solution. Prayer disrupts the enemy's plans. When Psalm 64 is declared, it exposes traps, dismantles envy, and clears the spiritual air. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, the hidden dangers become powerless. But there's something even more powerful that happens when you pray with full trust. Think about a time when you sensed danger and acted just in time. That's not luck. It's divine intervention. God doesn't just protect. He warns, redirects, and shields. But His protection isn't automatic. It's activated through faith and the Bible's promises. Those who stand under His covering remain untouchable, no matter what's planned against them. And the deeper one's trust grows, the stronger this protection becomes. So how does one develop unshakable trust in God's protection? Trusting God isn't just about believing He exists. It's about knowing He is in control, even when nothing makes sense. That's the kind of faith that Psalm 64 ignites. When adversity strikes, fear whispers lies. You're alone. There's no way out. But faith silences those voices, reminding the heart that God has already gone ahead. Think of a child who sleeps peacefully during a storm because they trust their parents. That's the level of trust believers are called to have, resting in God's promises, no matter the chaos outside. Faith isn't passive. It's a choice. Every day, people either feed their faith or their fears. Imagine facing a difficult situation, bills piling up, relationships strained, uncertainty pressing in. What happens next depends on what is stronger, fear or faith. Prayer rooted in the Bible isn't just about asking. It's about declaring victory before it even happens. When one prays Psalm 64, They're not just hoping for protection. They're stepping into divine assurance, knowing that God fights battles unseen. But how does one develop this kind of bold faith? It starts with experience, seeing God move, even in the smallest ways. Think back to a time when a door opened unexpectedly or a problem resolved itself in ways you couldn't explain. That wasn't coincidence. It was divine intervention. The more one recognizes God's hand in everyday life, the stronger trust becomes. And when faith grows unshakable, fear loses its grip. But faith alone isn't enough. There's a powerful name that makes all the difference. There's power in a name, and no name carries more authority than Jesus. When Psalm 64 is prayed with his name, it's no longer just a request. It becomes a command in the spiritual realm. Think about how a courtroom works. A lawyer may present arguments, but when the judge speaks, the final decision is made. Jesus is that authority. When his name is declared over fear, anxiety, and negativity, they have no choice but to leave. That's why true protection isn't just about praying. It's about praying through Christ. Ever felt trapped by overwhelming thoughts, like a storm raging in your mind? That's where Jesus steps in. He isn't just a protector. He's the one who calms the storm. Anxiety, fear, and doubt lose their grip when his presence is invited. The Bible shows time and time again how he interceded for those who called on him, and he still does today. A simple prayer, "Jesus, take control," can shift an entire situation. But what happens when a person truly allows him to lead? Doors open, chains break, peace takes over. Jesus' intercession isn't just about removing struggles. It's about transforming hearts. When a person prays Psalm 64 through him, they're not just asking for protection. They're stepping into divine alignment. And alignment brings clarity. Suddenly, obstacles turn into stepping stones, and what once seemed impossible becomes reality. But there's something even greater than protection and peace. Faith isn't just about believing. It's about becoming. Every challenge, every hardship, every setback has the potential to shape a person into something greater. But the key is perspective. Psalm 64 isn't just a prayer for protection. It's a declaration that God can turn any adversity into a testimony. Think of Joseph, betrayed, imprisoned, forgotten. Yet, through faith, his story shifted from suffering to victory. What if the very battle someone is facing right now is actually a setup for something bigger? Imagine a person who once lived in constant fear, feeling powerless against life's struggles. Then, they discover the power of prayer and start declaring God's promises daily. Slowly, their mindset shifts. They no longer react to problems. They respond with faith. That's transformation. The Bible is filled with examples of ordinary people who became extraordinary through trust in God. And the same principle applies today. But transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires one crucial ingredient: consistency. Just like an athlete trains daily to build strength, faith must be exercised regularly. Praying Psalm 64 once is powerful, but making it a habit? That's life-changing. Over time, the person who once felt weak begins to stand firm. Doubt fades, strength rises, and soon, they realize they are no longer just seeking God's protection. They are walking in his power. But how does one know if they are truly walking in divine direction? There's something reassuring about knowing you're on the right path. But how can anyone be sure? The answer lies in divine guidance. Psalm 64 isn't just about protection. It's about alignment with God's will. Many chase after their own plans, only to find themselves exhausted and lost. But when someone seeks God first, doors open effortlessly. Think of a traveler using a GPS. When they follow the right route, they reach their destination without unnecessary detours. That's what happens when a life is led by his direction. But trusting God's timing isn't always easy. People often want instant results, quick fixes, immediate answers. Yet, the Bible reminds us that his ways are higher. Imagine planting a seed and digging it up every day to check if it's growing. Nothing would take root. Faith requires patience. Praying for guidance means believing that even in the waiting, God is working. And often, it's in the silence, in the uncertainty, that he speaks the loudest. The question is, are we truly listening? Sometimes, God's guidance comes in unexpected ways. A delayed flight that prevents an accident, a lost job that leads to a better opportunity, a closed door that redirects towards something greater. His protection isn't just about shielding from harm. It's about leading to purpose. That's why Psalm 64 is so powerful. It invites not only safety but clarity. And when someone walks in clarity, they also begin to experience something just as crucial. God doesn't just protect, He restores. True prosperity isn't just about wealth. It's about wholeness in every area of life. Psalm 64 is a cry for protection, but it's also a pathway to healing. Think of someone battling emotional wounds, memories of rejection, words that cut deep, fears that linger. When they pray, they're not just asking for external changes. They're inviting God to work from the inside out. And when healing starts within, everything around them begins to shift. Healing isn't always instant, but every prayer plants a seed. The Bible is full of stories where faith led to restoration, whether it was a blind man seeing, a broken heart mended, or a lost soul finding purpose. Prosperity follows the same pattern. It's not just about finances. It's about living in divine overflow. Imagine someone who once struggled to make ends meet, but through faith and prayer, begins to see unexpected opportunities arise. That's not coincidence. That's God's provision at work. When a person aligns their life with God, blessings chase them. It may not happen all at once, but the shift is undeniable. Doors open, peace replaces anxiety, resources flow in ways they never imagined. Psalm 64 isn't just a prayer of defense, it's a declaration of abundance. But what good is a blessing if it isn't shared? There's one more powerful aspect of faith that multiplies everything. Faith isn't meant to be kept, it's meant to be shared. Imagine someone discovering the power of Psalm 64 and experiencing divine protection, healing, and breakthroughs. Would they keep it to themselves? Of course not. When a person finds something life-changing, they naturally want others to benefit too. Just like a candle lights another without losing its flame, sharing prayer and faith only multiplies the blessings. Someone out there is waiting for the very encouragement you've received. Think about how the Bible spread across generations, not through silent belief, but through people boldly sharing God's word. Even today, a single prayer can spark a ripple effect. Maybe a friend struggling with fear hears about Psalm 64 and finds courage. Maybe a family member battling doubt starts believing again. A simple act of sharing can turn despair into hope, weakness into strength. And in a world filled with noise and negativity, being a light makes all the difference. That's why spreading faith is so powerful. It connects people to God and to each other. A shared prayer builds unity. A spoken testimony inspires another soul, and together, faith grows stronger. Protection, healing, prosperity, all of it expands when people stand together in belief. So, the question isn't just how one can receive these blessings, but how they can help others receive them too. And that leads to something even greater. You've just unlocked powerful spiritual insights, but now, the real work begins. The knowledge shared here isn't just meant to be read. It's meant to be applied. Imagine facing life's challenges with divine protection, strength, and clarity. What if every moment of fear was replaced by confidence, and every setback became an opportunity for transformation? By using Psalm 64 as your prayer, you're stepping into a life where God fights for you. But the question is, will you take that first step and embrace the power of His protection? Let this prayer be your shield, your guide, and your source of strength. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with those who need it most. Together, you can build a powerful network of faith, support, and divine intervention. If you felt inspired by what you've learned, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Continue learning, growing, and transforming your life, one prayer at a time. Remember, with God's protection, there's nothing you can't overcome.